All right, Legally 40ish. We're back. We were in Lake Tahoe last weekend. So sorry. We missed an episode last weekend. This is episode 4. Today we are going to be talking about Kardashians and some lawsuits, I think. And and a little bit about California's recall election. I am Natasha.
I'm Allegra.
I was going to say that's Allegra over there. Yeah, we were in Tahoe last weekend, and I just want to bring up really quickly, one, I know that no one cares, but I'll say it anyway, is that I bought some new luggage, and it wasn't for Tahoe, it's for really my East Coast trip coming up, because it's going to be a longer period of time. But I would just like to say that this luggage is a medium-sized hardshell luggage. I've never had hardshell luggage before. Turns out, why do people like it? Like, it is split in two, and you can't access your things easily, and it fits way less than a normal luggage. I couldn't even fit a long weekend in Tahoe in this luggage.
I mean, to be fair, you also overpacked.
I did not. Like,
she overpacked. I will say she couldn't even fit shoes in her luggage. Her carry-on bag was a grocery bag with 3 pairs of shoes.
That's true.
It is true. But I agree. It was, for as big as it looked, it was quite empty.
Yes, that was, I love the color. It was this like really beautiful blush pink that is totally all scuffed up now. On one trip on the airport conveyor belt did that. But I love the color. I love the spin that the wheels had. But I just don't, and like these hard shell luggages, everyone has them and raves about them. And I'm like, where do you put your stuff? Like where, like, it was just crazy. And then I couldn't shut it, remember? Yeah. And then I had to take my toiletry bag. Is that what it's called? A toiletry bag with like my face wash and all that?
Yeah.
We had to take that and put it in Allegra's luggage as well as my shoe bag.
Yeah. So I had to carry her stuff back from Tahoe because she couldn't origami it back into or Jenga it back into the luggage.
You can like other soft luggages or whatever you call them. You can like, if you really need to, you can sit on it and like get shit in there. This hard shell, like, no, I don't know. I don't get it.
Okay, moral of the story. Don't buy hard shell away luggage. She's returning it now. But anyway.
I think I'm still going to get the bigger carry-on because I think a carry-on would be a different story for a much shorter trip. I realized we were only gone for, was it 3 nights? Mm-hmm. I'm acting like it was like 2 weeks. No, but I think like, but it was also, we needed options. Like we didn't know what the weather was going to be like. We needed bathing suits. We needed going out outfits, we needed lounge outfits, we needed hiking outfits.
Okay, whatever you have to tell yourself to justify your overpacking. Okay, but let's move on. We've spent God knows how many minutes on hard shell luggage, but moral of the story.
I just want to know, like, I love the idea, but I did not love the execution practical wise. I want to know what other people think. Anyway, okay.
So send us your comments on hard shell luggage.
Yeah, Mom, are you listening?
She's not actually.
She's definitely not.
That's quite sad. So yeah, we've got the Kardashians and kind of incidentally the Jenners in today's topics. Should I go first?
Yeah, I talk about people are probably more. Well, I think the California recall election is kind of like a hot topic, but I think we should talk about Skims and Good American first.
Okay, so
is it about Skims?
No, it's not, but that's okay. Oh. So first things first, I do want to know your opinion on the Kardashians. Are you a Kardashian fan?
No.
Okay. I mean, I figured that would be your response, but I figured I'd ask. So go ahead, what?
Full disclosure, I am not a Kardashian fan. I've never seen a full episode. I think it's crazy that they are as popular as they are, which I'm in the minority on, obviously. But Khloe Kardashian and her Good American jeans, I do really like, and in Kim's new line too, that they make things for women, not people who are size 0 that don't make up most of the population. I really do like that. And Khloe's jeans fit me very well. I was like torn because I was like, I don't want to like, support this financially because I don't believe in people being famous just for being famous, for whatever. But then the jeans fit like a glove. And
I agree with you on that. I am also not a Kardashian fan, so I don't know if that like takes away my pop culture street cred because I know they're a huge part of pop culture. But
when I think of pop culture, I think of them.
Yeah. I mean, I have watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I used to watch it. I don't even know how long it's been on the air, forever, but I haven't watched in a very, 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 very long time. And so I'm not that interested, but I do also like the Good American jeans. I only have one pair because, well, for a number of reasons, but I don't think I bought them until last year and during quarantine. And I don't really want to be buying jeans right now. Quarantine was not good to me. So I will buy more, but yeah, no, they're great. So let's talk about what's going on then with Khloe Kardashian and Good American, because actually that's one of the 2 lawsuits that I've heard about, found out about. So this lawsuit is actually against Khloe Kardashian and Good American. So the case just settled. So it's kind of, I guess it's topical because it's been in the news because of the settlement. So let me ask you this. You talked about their jeans. Do you have any Good American bodysuits?
I was in quarantine and bought more bodysuits than I think you could wear in a week.
But like, where were you going to go in said bodysuits?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's just like planning for the future. Okay. Like yes, I have Good American bodysuits.
Okay. So that's really what this lawsuit is about. So there's a company called, I'm probably going to get this wrong, Blue Dazzled. And so that's the name. And I think the woman's name, her last name is Blue. She's the one who created the designs. So she created these bodysuits, these crystal bodysuits. They're kind of like a mesh bodysuit with crystals covering like the boobs and like, did you see those on the Good American website?
No, and I don't have those, for the record. I didn't even see those. I have like normal ones that
I pictured you walking around the house in quarantine in like a Britney Spears Toxic type of bodysuit.
Oh, now that you mention it, though, I would not deny a Toxic type bodysuit. I wouldn't wear it, but anyway.
So if you know what I'm talking about, if you know Britney, you know Toxic, you kind of know what. That's kind of the design. So anyway, this designer, she filed a lawsuit against Khloe Kardashian and Good American alleging fraud and deceit, common law trade dress infringement, misappropriation, California statutory unfair competition, and common law unfair competition. And she's alleging that Khloe's team purchased and borrowed numerous pieces of Blue Dazzled clothing under the guise that they were for her personal use. And instead they copied the designs and used them for Good American. So if you actually take a look at the design, so I'll send you a photo, and it doesn't really work when we're doing this in a podcast format, but for anyone who's even remotely interested, if you look at the designs that she created and then look at the ones that Khloe Kardashian or Good American put out on their website, they are quite similar. So apparently,
wait, I have to stop there.
Go ahead.
Neither of us practice in like IP or intellectual property or like design and patent infringement and all that. Mm-hmm. So I have a very like kind of like executive level knowledge of the law there. But like, how many designs are there for a bodysuit? No, it's basically a glorified leotard. You know what I mean? Like how many? I'm like genuinely kind of asking, because how would you be able? I mean, yeah, the designs look similar, but every bodysuit looks similar.
So I agree. What's the beef? Well, I think that you have a point, because Khloe's lawyer, so after the lawsuit was filed, you know, whenever these things happen, kind of like the stages of litigation for people who don't understand, once you file the lawsuit, it's called a complaint. And once it's filed, it becomes a public record. So normally when you have a lawsuit filed against a celebrity or some sort of person with notoriety, either there's news companies kind of waiting and looking regularly for these things to come out, or someone's attorney might leak, quote unquote, the complaint, the lawsuit to the press, and then they start covering it. So as soon as the lawsuit was filed, Khloe's lawyer came out and made a public statement and said, "This is nothing more than a cheap publicity stunt and an attempt by Miss Blue to get her 15 minutes of fame. Miss Blue did not create the concept or design of a bodysuit with crystals, a fashion style that has been around for decades, as evidenced by the fact that Cher has been wearing these styles for over 25 years. So it's kind of the
I actually kind of like Cher. Like maybe I shouldn't admit that.
No, who doesn't?
I like her women empowerment and like her, I don't know, she's just like whatever. Like that reminds me of like this whole when you try to like trademark. So for me, like, and maybe there's much more to it. Obviously, a lawyer is going to come out and say like, oh, this is just what he or she is going to say exactly what he or she said there.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lawsuit years ago. You know the shoes Christian Louboutin, the Red Sole, right? That's their like go-to. That is the red, whatever you call it, red bottom, red sole. Mm-hmm. And there was a lawsuit or a couple lawsuits. I don't know the full details, but it was basically like they tried to trademark the color as like that, like theirs, right? And they lost because like I guess the whole thing was you can't trademark a color, or you
makes
can't.
sense.
I mean, they lost, but so it's like, so in a similar vein, like, is there like there's not just one? Like no one has a exclusive patent on a bodysuit design, right? With like little crystals.
No, and I agree, and I think again, we don't know. We don't practice in this area of law, so
we're definitely so qualified to be
incredibly qualified to be commenting on this. I can comment on litigation because I am a litigator and Natasha was, so we understand the process and what that means. But they didn't actually, unless common trade dress infringement is some sort of IP infringement cause of action. I don't know, but there's misappropriation, unfair competition law. So those are different, those are different actual allegations. So it's not necessarily saying you stole my trademark, you stole my patent, but you copied my stuff and are selling it. Like that's an unfair competition. Maybe, I don't know. Because again, not an area of law I practice in, but you can allege certain things that may not necessarily fall under actual trademark infringement or actual IP infringement. So what happened kind of with the lawsuit, it was only filed last May 2020 and it settled April 26, 2021, or the notice of settlement and dismissal were filed. So actually like that's a really short period of time for a case to start and end, which people might not understand that a year is nothing in litigation, especially during COVID when nothing was happening in the courts. But Khloe's team did try, or they filed a motion to get the lawsuit thrown out. Won't go into the details of that because it's really boring legal stuff. They lost. And the decision that the judge wrote was like 21 pages or something. So it was detailed. And then they reached a settlement shortly thereafter. We don't know the details of the settlement. You rarely ever do. So it could have been settled just with I'm sorry, we won't sell it anymore. It could have been.
I guess we'll find out if I go to buy a bedazzled bodysuit now.
From what I hear, they are no longer on the Good American
My Britney
website.
Spears Halloween costume is not going to be got for the toxic video. Is not going to be found on the Good American website. I guess maybe, I don't know. But the point is like, we're not trademark lawyers, but like I think this is one of the big misconceptions of being a lawyer is that how many times have you been somewhere and someone's like, oh, you're a lawyer? I have a question about X, Y, and Z. And like the thing about being a lawyer is that there's just so many areas of law and so many types of lawyers that you may have a general idea of some things and you could go look at laws or you could go look at things, but the practice of law, generally speaking, is very nuanced. And so anyone who claims to know everything about everything, run, because that's just batshit crazy talk, psychobabble. But the point here is like we bring stuff up that's in the news or, pop culture stuff just to like kind of discuss it and, the legal aspects, but we're also just like girlfriends that talk about this shit, like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And I think that like, because people care about the Kardashians and they're interested in what's happening, it's like, let's just talk about it. Khloe's lawsuit is done. The Kardashians are probably going to have a lot of lawsuits against them because they are rich and famous. And when you are target. But there's also could be some validity to lawsuits brought against them. And I think you bring up a valid point that while this is entertainment and this is fun and this is we try to be informative, but we aren't experts, especially in this area of law, but we do have the ability to either find answers or to point you to someone who would know the answers. So
that's when you know a good lawyer is like, if again, even with, I would say a lot of things, but our expertise is law. So I'll just talk about it in law. Like I'm very suspicious of someone who claims to know everything. about an area of law they've never practiced. Or now when I talk about constitutional law, that's different. Like it's obviously, no, it is. It's like we may have a more working knowledge of the law, generally speaking, because we've been to law school and practiced some areas of law. But yeah, anyone who tries to claim like they're an expert in every area, no.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the phrase? Jack of all trades, master of none. So
a lot of people are masters of zero in the law.
So let's move on. Khloe's done. So that lawsuit's over with. Hopefully
I'm like secretly glad it's not some kind of like thing that, I mean, maybe there still is out there. I just don't know, like where I would feel guilty buying the clothes, because then.
Yeah, don't worry. There's no allegation that there's some like child labor and you can't buy these. And, not that I'm aware.
They're made in LA, right?
I don't know.
Actually, I don't. Yeah, I might be.
They cost enough money that they should be made right here.
They should be made in my house, like custom. Like
yeah, exactly.
I got them all on sale though. That's the other like great.
Oh, yeah, you got to wait for the sale to buy them.
Yeah,
they're really great. Which anyway, I'm not going to promote the Kardashian jean line. If you know, you know. Okay, so Kim is being sued. Now her lawsuit is a little more interesting because it's ongoing. It's brand new and it's really applicable to California law though. So for anyone who's not in California, sorry, but there's probably some crossover, but I don't know. So Kim's lawsuit involves workers who were working in her home, cleaning and maintenance. So I'll just give you a quick background. The lawsuit's about it's labor and employment violations. So plaintiffs were full-time cleaning and maintenance workers for defendants. So it's Kim Kardashian and then like Doe's.
What about Kanye?
No, he's not named in this particular lawsuit. There is a lawsuit brought by the same attorney, which I think mirrors against Kanye West and like West, whatever. I don't know their businesses. There's a similar lawsuit alleging labor and employment violations brought by the same attorney, different workers a year ago or something. I didn't read about it. I just tangentially saw it when researching this topic. So, it says plaintiffs were full-time cleaning and maintenance workers for defendants. They worked on a crew that performed daily and ongoing cleaning and maintenance at her house. Defendants told them they were employees and withheld 10% in taxes, but never turned over the taxes to the IRS. There's an allegation that one employee asked questions about his labor and employment rights and that he was terminated for it. There's also another plaintiff named who is only 16 years old. And the allegation is that he worked hours in excess of what is allowed for a minor. So that's is child labor law violations that are being alleged. So here are like the highlights, the points that they're alleging Kim Kardashian and others. I don't know who these other defendants are. I think they're all Doe defendants, meaning they haven't been individually named in the lawsuit yet. But here are the allegations. That they worked excess. So it's multiple plaintiffs. I can't remember, maybe like 6 or 7, that they worked in excess of 8 hours a day and or 40 hours a week without overtime, that the defendants failed to pay minimum wage for all hours worked, failed to provide timely off-duty meal periods, failed to provide timely off-duty rest periods. They willfully misclassified employees as independent contractors and as exempt. They engaged in child labor violations, failed to provide written notice containing information of the name of the employer, failed to properly compensate all wages twice each calendar month, on the days designated in advance as regular pay days, failed to furnish itemized wage statements timely and accurately, failed to pay all wages earned no later than the payday for the next regular payroll period, failed to reimburse necessary business expenses, failed to keep accurate payroll records, and then failed to promptly pay all compensation upon termination of employment. So these are pretty big allegations against Kim Kardashian, but their response to the lawsuit that's been brought, there hasn't been an answer filed that I saw, but their response publicly is that Kim hired through a third-party agency. So essentially she contracted with, let's just call them A and B cleaning services, and A and B cleaning services then sent the employees to her house to clean. So Kim just pays A and B and they're supposed to pay the employees.
Yeah. Here's the thing about that. That's all really bad stuff that if you employ people, you have to follow the law. I mean, I've worked for people who haven't followed the law.
Have you?
Yeah. It's pretty weird when you're a lawyer and you're like, hey, you're
breaking labor laws. I know.
They're pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, so that's pretty serious. But also it is surprising. You would think someone like Kim Kardashian, and again, I don't know her personally. None of my beef with the Kardashians is personal, right? I don't like actually know them.
I had no idea. I thought you got in a big fight on the playground one day. No, I get why you don't like them. I mean, you can explain, but people will come for you. I mean, come for us because people love the Kardashians.
No, so that's my beef is not personal. And now I'm supporting Khloe Kardashian's brand. And I'm not going to lie. I really am waiting for the Skims bodysuits to come back in stock. They're all out of stock freaking everywhere.
Have you bought any Skims product?
No, but now it's like they're for everybody. And like I'm 38. I'm not going to be.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not
going to listen to you body shame yourself. You are.
I'm not. No, I'm being body positive. Like I'm just saying, like I appreciate brands now more than ever. Like when I was in my 20s, I was still trying to like be a size 0 again or a size 2. And like what I didn't understand for a long time is that my hip bones were not going to move. Like my hip bones were always going to be my hip bones, right? But I spent I think a lot of us do, and the media plays a big part of that. It's like you have to look a certain way, you have to be as skinny as possible, blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Now in my 30s, I'm much more happy and confident in my body. But I appreciate that there's more and more brands representing actual women and making things that like I remember trying stuff on when I was little, and like I would be in a large, and it would be like so small. Mm-hmm. Like it was only like a very specific, you know, you hear like horror stories of like, I've heard celebrities talk about how they work with designers and the designers like, I have nothing this big, like nothing over size 4. Like you can't even fit into this. And you're just like, fuck off. Like, you know what I mean? So I appreciate what Kim and Khloe are doing with their brands for that. They are making things for people that are not stick figures. Which is great. So I want to try Kim's bodysuits because they are for everybody and like to see like, you know, they're like supposed to be like seamless and comfortable. And I kind of like the like sleek look of a bodysuit. It's annoying as fuck when you wear them for like, you know, more than like 5 hours ish. Cause it's not.
No, I get it. I'm not a big fan of like having to reach under to get to snaps and things, and you're like doing a freaking gymnastics routine in the bathroom, a public restroom. For sure. I mean, this is a very weird description, but anyone who you're like, where is okay? How do I get okay? Got it. Oh wait, this is
they're
weird.
Not. That's why I'm interested to see if like they're more comfortable than others because I like the look of it, but wearing wise, like they're a pain in the ass.
Okay, so what were you going to say about your beef? No, let's just okay. So labor and employment laws.
So yeah, I was just thinking about how the Skims is all out of stock.
You really got sidetracked with that.
I did. Well, I guess my point was that it's surprising to me when people and this just goes for anything. It's like, it's always so surprising when people in positions of notoriety or fame or power think they can get away with, and I'm not saying Kim did or did not engage in this behavior. It makes way more sense, frankly, if she did contract with a third party agency but I don't know, you know, I really truly have no knowledge whatsoever in terms of like what actually happened, but it's always surprising to me. And it's like, you can't be that stupid and think you're going to get away with treating people this way, but it does happen all the time.
Sure.
People.
And I think, so when I was doing my research, because I was kind of thinking along the same lines that you are, like, if you're employing people in your home and you're this wealthy, famous, access to resources, you run multiple companies, so you have attorneys at your disposal to help you understand the laws. And in California, California is a very employee friendly state. We have a lot of laws that protect employees from bad behavior by employers. So you have to have an attorney guide you through, you know, labor and employment issues. And so again, another area of law we don't practice and that we're commenting on, but it is a plaintiff's,
We've done some a little bit of that, but it's also, and I'm saying this as someone who used to sue people myself, like as an attorney, you know, it is, even if they sue Kim Kardashian, they name Kim Kardashian. That's way more newsworthy than just naming a potential company that, you know, like maybe has a connection because she used them. And so I wanted to ask you, like, when you say Doe defendants and these people haven't been identified yet, how can you sue without knowing who you're suing? Like, what can you just explain that really quickly for people? Because I think that confuses people when they're like, what do you mean? Can you bring a lawsuit and not know who you're suing?
So there's sometimes, like, for instance, in this case, it's a little bit off because you know who writes your paycheck normally. You normally see the name of the person who's writing your paycheck and you understand
who the defendant
is. Yeah. So
like, is that the case here? Like, what were the paychecks?
I don't know. And there's not enough information for us to understand why that Doe defendant hasn't been named. But generally speaking, when you see a lawsuit that says like name, and Doe's 1 through 100, it may be the fact that sometimes in a case where you have, let's say you get injured on someone's property and you think the owner of the property is Mr. A, but in actuality, Mr. B, who you've never met, you don't know anything about him, is the owner and they control the property. So you just put in a Doe, you literally write in Doe 1. And once you find out the identity of Mr. B, you find out that he even exists, you can later then let the court know, hey, I figured out who this person is and now I'm going to add them in. But if you never mention a Doe and time goes on and the statute of limitations passed, you can't later then say, hey, wait, I found out about Mr. B, so I need to add him to the lawsuit. So that's why you'll see lawsuits when you hear like the Does. That's what that means. There may be someone out there that I just don't know about for a number of reasons. And once I find out who that person is, I'll go ahead and add them to the lawsuit. So in this case, I just wanted to touch on one more thing before we move on. With respect to Kim's liability, if any, I did a little bit of research, and it sounds like in California, there is a law. So even if Kim did contract with a third party and the third party is the one who didn't pay all these wages, the third party is the one who's actually kind of controlling the employee-employer relationship. There is a law in California that it's called because let me tell you real quick, in the complaint, they allege that Kim is personally liable as the employer and or joint employer of plaintiffs. So obviously there's someone else involved. But there's a law that says that it's called, it's something about like client employer. And this law says that it expanded the liability of client employers that obtain workers through temporary agencies and or other labor contractors. The law requires that the client employer who obtains the workers through the agency must share in the liability for any wage and workers' compensation issues. So if I contract with a third party and that third party isn't doing anything right, I could be on the hook for what they're doing. So that's where California law has expanded the liability to.
Yeah, that's a big protection for workers.
Yeah, but also like scary for someone like Kim Kardashian, who just assumes that, they're doing what they should be doing. It's like, well, now you could be potentially liable because of this law and the expansion to include potentially someone who hires a third party to do services in their home or at their workplace. So it's kind of interesting. We'll see what happens. I do agree with you, though, that naming Kim Kardashian, making this a public lawsuit is just a little more notable, and
it draws attention to it in ways that you would never get just suing.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. She could be liable. She could not. Again, this is the way these things work. There may be some validity. You shouldn't, as an attorney, file a lawsuit against someone that has absolutely no merit. We have an ethical obligation not to do those sorts of things. So hopefully that's not the case here, but we'll see what happens. And we'll update you when there's any update. So, Natasha, we don't have a ton of time, so I'm sorry, but let's move on to your boyfriend, Mr. Gavin Newsom, Governor of California. No, I'm kidding. But let's talk about the recall election because, you didn't know? He's not your boyfriend?
Okay, listen, she's not kidding about the fact we're going to talk about him. But yeah, I have met him 3 times. So there's a little bit of
I've met him twice. You win, but.
Yeah, so no, I do win. And I have 3. I have 3 photos with him. So, anyway. Guess this. All right. So yeah, let's talk about it. Recall election.
Okay. When we post this, like the video portion of it, I'm going to add in the photos that you have with him.
Great. So,
people will probably hate us more. You hate the Kardashians. You love Gavin Newsom. I mean, I don't love Gavin Newsom, Natasha.
No, I'm not in love with him. God. I mean, you make me sound like, Look, he's no Chris Evans, okay?
Oh God, here we go. The worst. Okay, tell us about Newsom and his potential recall, but the recall election.
So we're in the process. April 26th, the Secretary of State of California announced that there be this organizer group, what they're called like the recall proponents. These are the people that are organizing to basically try to remove Gavin from office. I'm on a first name basis with Gavin, obviously.
I just laughed. That made me laugh.
Yeah. I say it so normally too. Like, it's like, oh no, Gavin said this, Gavin said that. Like, anyway, and what people immediately thought is like, oh, he's being recalled. And no, it's a process. That was like one of the steps in this process. And so we are now reaching another step of the process. And it looks like there is going to be a recall election where California registered voters will vote on whether, one, to remove Governor Newsom from office, and two, who should replace him.
Okay.
If he's removed. And the vote to whether to remove him or not needs 50% or more. The vote for who should replace him if he is going to be removed only needs a plurality, which means like.
Hold on real quick. Back up. I didn't quite hear you, or was it 50% or 15?
50.
50. So
yeah.
Of the people that vote, there has to be 50% or more that vote yes to recall.
Get him out. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Step 2 is shall replace him. And that only needs the majority of whoever gets the most votes.
Whoever gets the most votes, so not majority. So like there's only been one governor ever recalled in California. That was in 2003, Governor Gray Davis. That's how Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor. Mm-hmm. And he only won with like 48.6% of the vote. So like he didn't even get a majority of the votes.
Sorry, I guess when I say majority, I mean he gets the most of everyone else who's on the ballot.
Which is called a plurality, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I used the wrong word.
No, because majority means 50% or more, and it is a little bit. The whole recall process is kind of crazy because in order to trigger the process, what you call recall proponents, those who are like just dying to remove him from office, the organizers, I call them, they only needed a certain amount of signatures in order to trigger the formality of all this, right, where we are now.
Sure.
And it's 12% of voters in the 2018 election for governor. So it takes 12% of this, like people who voted back then, to trigger a statewide recall election of its current governor. That
seems pretty crazy because I
think it's kind of crazy. And it's the thing about recalls is not every state allows for them. Some states don't allow any recall elections at all for elected officials. And the states that do allow for them, it depends on what types of officers can be recalled. California, of course, we can recall a governor. Other states don't necessarily allow for that. So, but it's a pretty direct way of democracy, right? It's like having more power over elected officials, which is one of the pros. Mm-hmm. One of the cons, though, is then you're undermining elected officials. These people have been elected. Wait until the political process can take place again and vote them out once their term ends. But recall is removing someone from office, an elected official, before their term ends.
With only 12% of the previous voters having the opportunity to allow that vote to even go forward, which is, it's kind of nuts.
That's crazy.
It is. But let's give like a practical, because obviously how you vote is of no concern to me. I have my opinions, but if people want to vote in the recall election, let's say it's going to happen for sure. We don't know the date, but let's say it's going to happen. If someone is not a current registered voter, will they be able to participate? Can they get registered and vote in it?
I'm pretty sure as long as you're registered by the time, I don't know what those dates look like. Sure. I don't want to say for sure because we don't know when the election is going to be. Mm-hmm. And the reason we don't know is because that's how this process works. The election's not necessarily going to be on the first Tuesday of November. Mm-hmm. It can be people are estimating maybe it's going to be anywhere between September and November.
Okay.
So as the process goes on, it gets to a point where then the lieutenant governor has to call for an official recall election within a certain amount of days.
Okay.
We don't know when that's going to be yet.
So what should people be on the lookout for? Because whether you don't want Gavin recalled or you do, you have to participate, right? So like if I don't just say, I'm going to look at it this way. Let's say I don't want him recalled. I should still participate in this vote because I have to vote no, don't recall him, correct? Because I think there might be some people who think like, well, I don't want him recalled, so I don't need to go vote, right? This is only for people who are trying. But no, because what matters is how many people vote in the actual recall election. That's what makes the difference, right?
It's very important. Yes,
okay.
Everyone should vote.
So if you want him out, you should vote. If you don't want him out, you should vote.
Yes. And don't you also want to say in who would replace him?
Yeah.
God,
let's talk about that.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Do you know? I haven't seen a lot of, we live in California, obviously. We are California attorneys, and Natasha's very involved in politics and obviously constitutional law. But I haven't seen a lot of advertising or campaigning by potential candidates other than Caitlyn Jenner, because Caitlyn Jenner is, Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah.
Have you seen, are there a bunch of potential candidates?
There are some.
Okay.
And another interesting tidbit is there's no limit on the number of candidates that can be on the ballot. When Gray Davis was recalled in 2003 and Arnold Schwarzenegger won, there was like over 100 candidates on the ballot.
What a joke, though. So this is kind of scary because, okay, let's say the recall yes vote is 50% or more, right? So he's going to get recalled. Then we just have to have the person with the most votes below that, right? So let's say question 1, yes or no, 50% or more say yes. Now, just below that, we have a list of, let's say 20 people. No one's name but you do know Caitlyn Jenner's name. So you just fill in that box. Like what? This is kind of nerve-wracking, right? We don't know who it is going to be.
I have this fear that, we were talking about this the other day a little bit. I have this fear that people like to see train wrecks. Mm-hmm. And that people would be like entertained, kind of in the same vein. I know some people like really, really did like Donald Trump, but like kind of in the same vein of like, hey, like, yeah, let's reality.
Try something new. Yeah.
Govern California. Let's see how it goes. And like, because I think a lot of people really separate themselves from politics. That's why a lot of people don't get involved in it, and they find themselves to be really separate from it. And it's like, no, it touches your life every day, especially on a state level.
Yeah.
People don't tend to appreciate that as much as most of what governs your life is state law. And look at the COVID, it's been state governors, and that's why we're in this mess with Governor Newsom. So we're in this mess because that was like the final straw for a lot of people, is the lockdowns. And
sure. So let's what are we going to be on the lookout for? So are we going to get a ballot in the mail? Are we going to start hearing, is the news going to start like letting us know when the vote is, what we have to do, what that looks like? Because I think everyone should vote. I'm a big believer. You have a right to vote. You should vote, but you also have a right not to vote. But this is one where like you kind of, by voting, you also are like, if you have an opinion on this particular issue, whether he should be out or whether he should be in, you should go vote.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of informed voting.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, so every registered, I think it's going to be the same as it was for the election last year. Every registered California voter will get a mail ballot.
Okay.
You want to make sure you're registered. And yeah, you should have a say. And I think you are we have 40 million people-ish in California. Not all of those 40 million people are voters. But the point is, like, it all adds up. And this is what I try to explain to people is your vote does matter. I know it's like the electoral college and stuff. It's kind of like if you live in a blue state, if you live in a red state, you're like, my vote doesn't matter. But sometimes the spreads aren't that far apart. So like your vote does matter, and it being lackadaisical about it. And I call it more of like the freedom to vote. I do think it's a duty in some ways, but we don't have compulsory voting here. And
we shouldn't.
No, compulsory voting is actually an interesting topic. In the countries that do, voter turnout's obviously much higher, but like what's worse? Is people uninformed voting or people, that's a whole philosophical discussion. But yeah, so you will know more soon. We're just started the next phase of the process, which can be as much as 30 more days, 60 more days before we know. There's a lot of like, it's not loosey-goosey, but it's loosey-goosey in terms of timing because we just don't know yet. So once we do know, though, there will be 2 questions on the ballot, and we'll get a date, and everyone should inform themselves and vote.
Yeah, and once
California.
Yes, all of you California voters, and I will be I'm currently part of the uninformed because I don't know all of the people who are running for potential replacement. Although I don't know if that will matter in terms of my vote, because if I vote no, don't recall Governor Newsom, then it doesn't matter who the candidates are. But I still will make sure that I spend a little bit of time to see who is running, what their platform is, and how qualified they are to potentially become governor, because that's important. If you don't want Governor Newsom to be our governor anymore, then make sure you know who it is that's running against him and pick someone that you think will do a competent job of running our state, because we are one of the largest economies, right? I mean, California's insane.
It is. I mean, our population is like, I think Canada is around the same number of people in the entire country. I was going to say something and I just totally forgot because I was thinking about
Gavin's hair or what?
Listen.
You looked like you were in a little bit of a dreamland, so I thought maybe you were daydreaming about his hair.
I mean, I'm not like, do I have a few photos with him? Yes. And are they nice photos? They're actually not. I hate the way I look in each of them, which is like, and he looks great. Like he looks great in every photo. And I'm like, ugh, whatever, Gavin. No, now I forgot what I was going to say. And it was an important point. But in terms of, it was about the cost. So this is going to cost one of the things is when a state official is going to be recalled, there's a petition for recall. They can file an answer. And so if you actually saw the petition, Gavin's answer is on that. And one of the things he points out as a defense kind of, and what you're going to hear a lot about is how much is this going to cost California taxpayers. And Governor Newsom estimated $81 million. I'm hearing it's going to be much more than that. That's going to cost the state. So for people that complain about spending and all this shit, and then we have another gubernatorial election coming up
in a year,
not
right?
that far away. Yeah.
I know. It's like, just keep
me, this is silly, but people, and here's the thing, people have hated him because he's a progressive and he's a liberal. Obviously conservatives hate him. And then you had the pandemic. So I think that got a lot of people on board. But one of the things they're doing now that we go into is fiscal analysis of how much it really is going to cost. So that's another thing we'll hear about.
I think it's kind of rich for Newsom to discuss any sort of fiscal, any sort of outrageous spending, because let's be real, he spent a lot of money and
he did,
the budget's out of control.
Surplus. No, we have a surplus right now.
Well, I think that people are real pissed off about the amount of money that's being spent. That's what you hear a lot of from the other side. But
so they want to spend
80 million plus
more, and then we're having another election, and it's just, it's the same thing that I'm sure like Republican, the whole thing with impeaching Donald Trump, totally different circumstances. Because I do believe Trump committed impeachable offenses.
Sure.
Back with the Ukraine situation and with the insurrection at the Capitol. And it doesn't even matter what I believe, but I'm speaking from a political standpoint. It's like Republicans saw that as like, he's almost out of office. Like, just shut up, right? Like even if some of the Republicans agreed that the whole insurrection was bad, they were like, you're going to impeach him 10 days before his term ends. Like, move the fuck on, right? But so I get, it's kind of like, for me, I look at it and it's like, Gavin's term is almost done. If you don't like him, vote for someone else next election. But I get it. It's politics.
Well, let us know as soon as something changes, so we actually have something we can look towards and look for, because we do want everyone to be involved. If you are a registered California voter, if you're not, get registered, and we'll pick back up on it when there's something new to discuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a blast. Next week, don't know what will happen, but we'll see you next week. One thing I do want to ask is, if you aren't following us on social media, please do. You can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Legally 40ish. We would appreciate your support, and we'll see you next week.